Hi guys. So today picking up from where we left last time. So we had these exercises that you're supposed to do. I don't know if you guys completed it, but we're going to do it together. Are you able to complete these exercises? Are you able to complete this exercise? Or who was able to complete the exercise?
Okay, I did only the flowchart. I was able to do the flowchart. I don't know if it's correct, but that's what I did. But so not the second exercise. I couldn't understand. The flowchart, yes, I did something.
So you did this exercise here, but you didn't do this one.
Yes, I'm trying this one, but I still don't know how to go about it, so I leave it. I just couldn't do it. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Flowchart, I have something. I don't know if the flowchart is correct, but I did what I did.
Okay. So let's start with the flowchart. So I'm going to draw.io. So we're going to say continue. Okay. So we're going to start with our loop. So we're going to get into the loop. Using the arrow. So going to get in the loop or whatever you choose to explain, however you choose to explain this. So you're going into the loop. Then depending on whether it's a while loop or it's a for loop, for now, let's just use a while loop. Yeah, so we're going to test for a condition. Remember, we said that our loop will run as long as a certain condition evaluates to true. So we're going to test the condition. Then, so doing that, we're going to go to the body. The body of the loop. And then inside the body, we have the continue. So, okay, there's something I've not done here. We should use this one. Okay, so you're going to test the condition. If it's true, then we're going to move on to the body of the loop. Like that. So we're going to test for if this evaluated true. So we need to have a text here. That is, if the condition is true, we are moving into the body. If it's false, then so this is false. And then you're going to exit the loop. Exit the loop. But if it's true, we're going to have continue. And I need to make this one a little bit longer. So if the continue is false, then we're going to go back to our going back to the start of the code of the loop. If this is true, that is there's a continue. If there's no continue, then we proceed and execute the rest of the code. Okay, this is false. And that's it, we're done. So we go into the loop, test the condition. If it's false, we exit the loop. If it's true, we check for the continue. If there's a continue statement, we're going to go again to the start of our loop. If there's no continue statement, then we're going to proceed and execute the rest of the code. That's basically it for the flowchart. Yeah. So the whole point in doing this was for you to build logic on how you can break down a problem. Yeah. And most problems, just when you encounter a certain code that needs logic, just break down it into its individual components, and then maybe build a flowchart that will guide you on how you're going to structure the logic in your application or in your program. Okay. Do you have any question about that? Any question about the Okay, so this is what was required in the second exercise, exercise number 5. So you have a list of unverified users. Let's say you have a website that people sign up for a certain service. And first of all, for a user to access certain components within your website, they need to be verified first. Yeah. So you have a list of unverified users. Yeah. So you want to verify them and maybe now add them to the list of verified users. How do you go about that? Using loops. So I'm going to create another list here for unverified, for confirmed, which will start out as empty. Yeah. Then you're going to say while unverified that is, if the unverified list is not empty, you're going to get we're going to get one user from that unverified list. Let's call them user, which we get by unverified dot pop. And then now once we get hold of that, we are going to append to the list of confirmed users, because now we are going through the process of verifying. So I'm going to say confirmed dot append user. And maybe you can print out this user has been verified. Print, and this is a F string. We're going to get hold of the user. And we're going to say user has been verified or confirmed or whatever. Okay. Then outside, after once we exit the loop, we're going to print out now the list of confirmed users. Print confirmed. Yeah. And we can, if you want to visualize how this is happening, you can break it down. You can slow down that process using time. So let's import the time module, but that should do it for you. It's just because I want you to see how this is happening. Yeah, let's even print this one before we exit the loop so that you can see how the users are being added. So import time. So we're going to say time dot sleep, and I'm going to sleep for, let's say, 2 seconds. And to run that, you see what is happening? And we have exited the loop once the unverified, this statement here evaluates to false. Yeah, because now by doing this, we can also say if, while the length of the unverified is equal to 0 or is not less than 0. Yeah, we can run this or until the length of this unverified becomes 0. Yeah, so you can run, we can use different flags here. Right now we're using unverified, and what this basically means, this basically means if this list is not empty. Yeah, so this will evaluate to true until this list becomes empty, then it will evaluate to false, and then we'll exit the loop. So we are removing the last person from the unverified list, then we are appending them to the list of confirmed, then going back to the loop again, removing the second last person, appending them to the list of confirmed. Because that's why you see here the list of confirmed users starts with John, and they were the last person in the list of unverified. Yeah, because remember the pop method will remove the last item from the list. Yeah, and it will assign, you can assign it to a variable. Yeah, unlike other methods like the remove methods that you just remove, but you cannot get hold of the value that you removed. The pop method, you can get hold of the value that you removed, and then you can use it to do something else. Yeah, so the pop removes the last, and it will append it to the confirmed. Then now, after the first iteration, you're left with this. Yeah, so because John has been removed, so the last person now is Jada. That's why Jada is the second name that is being appended in our list of confirmed users. Yeah, that process will repeat until this unverified list becomes empty. Okay, so this time was just to visualize how this is happening, because the sleep method from the time module will pause the program for the specified time. Yeah, in this case, we've said that you want to pause the program for 2 seconds, then execute the loop again, pause for 2 seconds, execute until we get to the end of our list. Yeah, so that was what I expected from you for this exercise. You can also use the for loop. Yeah, you can use the for loop if you want. Right, so any question about that before we move on to today's class? Question? Okay, all right, so if you don't have any questions, we're going to proceed to today's class. So I'm going to shut down that and go to today's class. whereby in today's class, we are looking at functions. We've reviewed the previous exercise, so can get rid of that. Okay. And in Python or in any programming language, functions are named blocks of code that are designed to do a specific job. Yeah. So let's say you're building an application, and in that application, let's say you have the functionality for verifying the user, the thing that we've done just a few seconds ago. Yeah. Let's say if someone signs up, you have a function that get hold of that person who has signed up, and maybe after evaluating a few things, confirms or approves their application or their registration. Yeah, let's say you have a function like that. So instead of having to write code every time that person signs up, you can just write a function that does that for you, that specific job of verifying the users. And every time someone signs up to your service, that you call that function, and it's able to do that specific job that you designed it to do. Yeah. And this makes creating programs really efficient, and you make your work easier, as well as make it easier for you to debug when maybe an issue arises. Yeah. And it also enhances readability of your code, because you don't have to write a lot of code. Maybe you have a lot of reputational tasks in your program. So instead of having to rewrite that repetition every time you want to do something, you just write a function once, and anytime you need to use that function, you just call it, and it will execute whatever you designed it to do. Okay, and a function can be called in a program as many times as necessary. Once you create a function, you can call it as many times as you need to call it. Yeah, there's no limitation to that. Okay, and this is the basic structure of a function. So I'm going to open whiteboard. So we have the def, which is a Python keyword. Then we have the function name. Then we have the parentheses. Then we have a colon. Then we have some doc strings. And then you have your function body, or the function logic. Okay. So this part is called the function declaration, and it consists of the def keywords, which tells Python that you're declaring a function, and then the function name, and this name can be anything. And then you have the parentheses, and sometimes you can pass some data inside here, or some information inside the parentheses. We're going to look at that later. And then you close that using the colons. And then don't forget to do your indentation, one level of indentation here from where this is starting. So from here and from here. And anything that is indented inside the function becomes the function body. So if you are to write another piece of code now here in line with the function declaration here or the def, let's say print name, and the name is maybe a string. Yeah, so this print statement is not part of the function, yeah, because it's not indented here. So, but this portion here that is indented is a part of the function. Yeah, but this one, since it's all the way back to the start, it's not part of the function. Okay, then we have the doc string here. The doc string is just like a comment. Yeah, consists of text enclosed inside 3 pairs of quotation marks. And it basically helps to the person who is reading your code to understand what the function is doing, and also generate the documentation for your function. Yeah, you're basically telling people how to use your function and what the function is doing. Yeah, then this will not be executed. It's basically like a comment. A person who is reading your code will be able to see it, but it will not be executed. And then we have the body of the function now, where the logic for the entire function goes. Yeah, and basically that's it. That's the body or the structure of a simple Python function. Yeah, then finally we have, after defining your function, if you want to use your function now, you need to make a function call. And the function call, involves getting the name that you give to your function and then parentheses after, opening and closing parentheses, and that should call your function. And if your function required some information to do its work, you need to pass it that information when you're doing the function call. And that is called an argument. You're going to look at arguments and parameters later in the class. But this is the basic Python function. Def, which is the Python keyword for defining a function, then the function name, parentheses. Sometimes you might have some information inside parentheses, then the doc string, which helps in explaining what your function is doing and how it works and generating the documentation for your function. And then the body of the function or the function logic. And then if you want to use your function now, you need to make a call to that function so that it can execute whatever is inside the function body. Okay. And this is it. We are defining a function called greetUser. And our function does not, for now, it doesn't require any information to do its job. And then colon, then our doc string, and the body of our function is just print hello. And when we run that, you can see nothing is happening. Yeah. For it to execute, you need to call that function now. And that's what you're doing here by getting the greetUser function and then the parentheses. And once we run this, it should be able to execute whatever was inside that function. Okay. There's some notes here I prepare. So when you're going through the class later, maybe you can read through the notes. If you don't understand anything, but everything that is in the notes, I have explained everything. Yeah. Then we look at how you can now pass information to your function. So some functions, or sometimes you might need to pass some information to your function so that it can do its job. Yeah. So imagine you wanted to create now a function that greets a user by their name. Yeah. So how do you do that? You need to pass information to your function like this here. During your function declaration, you pass in some information here that will be used inside the function. Yeah, between the parentheses, and that can be, you can have several pieces of information that your function needs to do its job. Yeah, you can have 2, you can have 3, you can have 4, you can even have 10, but each one of them should be separated by a comma. Yeah. So if we have our def, let's call our function greet user or greet, then we need to have the name of the person that we want to greet. Yeah. And then we're going to have our doc string. This function, let's say it greets a user. And these are colons. And so we are going to print hello, then plus the user or the name that we enter during our function call. Yeah, then we call our function greet. And then we're going to pass in the name of, let's say, John as a string. So John. Yeah. So what happens when you call this function using this John? So then the value of name here, the name here will now be represented by John, this one here. So this one will now be John instead of name. And it will be passed down here also. And our name will be John now. So our function will print out hello, John. Yeah, if you passed here, let's say Mary, then Mary is the one that will be used here. And this name serves as a temporary variable as well. Yeah, it's like saying name equals to Mary. Yeah, so that's what this variable, this parameter here will do. It's just like you'll assign the variable name to the value of Mary. Yeah, and if you use now name here, that name will be representing Mary or John or Mary or Jane, whatever. And these now are called arguments or parameters. Okay, so we are going to define another function again called greet user, but this time it's going to take the username as a parameter. And we will have a doc string here that says greet user. Then you're going to print out hello and then this name, username here. So we're going to call our function and pass in grandpa. Yeah, so we expect this one username will now represent grandpa, and when we come here, username will represent grandpa, and our output will be hello grandpa. And once we run that, you can see we have our result. Yeah, so this username here, this is called a parameter. Yeah, and it's the piece of information that the function needs to do its job. Yeah, and this value that we specify here when we are calling the greet user function, this is called an argument. And the argument is now the piece of information that is passed from the function call to the function itself. Yeah, remember we've said here the value that you specify during the function call is the one that will be passed to the function here. And anytime you use this value, anywhere that this value is used inside the function will be replaced by the value that you called your function with. Okay, so this is the parameter, this is the argument, but people call them arguments together or parameters or whatever. But if you hear parameter or argument, you should know they are referring to this value and this one. But this is the parameter and this is the argument, but they are used interchangeably most of the time. So okay, any question up to that point before we go to our task, our first task of the day, our first and only task for the day? So today we only have one. Questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, go to coding rooms, and under the functions module, you have, so go to coding rooms and go to this task one here and open it and attempt that exercise. And be sure to read the instructions carefully. So given a list of users, create a function called greetUser that takes each name of the user in the list and returns greetings. Yeah. So, and there are different ways to do this, but today we want to use the Python function. So make sure you use your function. And the greetings that it returns, let's say your name is Jane, so it should return hello Jane. Yeah. And this is the example input. You have users John, Jane, Jade, Joe. So the output will be hello Jane, John, hello Jane, hello Jade. And make sure you can just copy this line for the output, because if you don't copy these, if it misses even one dot or full stop, then it will not pass the test in coding room. So make sure your sentence structure looks like this: hello, comma, the name, and then full stop. Yeah, so go to coding rooms and attempt that. Okay, guys, I can see most of you are done. So let's just do this together. So going to insert the cell below. So basically, we have our so let me fetch our list. So we have a list here of users. So you're writing a function, we're defining a function called greetUser, which takes the name of the user as a parameter. And we can have a doc string that says the function greets the user. Then you can just say, you can just print hello. And use of f string here. Hello name. The name now that we will pass during our function call. Yeah. Now what is left is just to call the function. But since we want to greet every user in this list user, first we need to loop through that list. Yeah, so we're going to say for user in the list of users, and we're going to call now the function inside the loop. So you're going to say greet user, then you're going to pass this name, the user, to our function. Yeah, once we run that, you can see we have hello Mary, hello Miles, hello Martin, and hello mother. Yeah, there are others who put the for loop inside here. It's working and it will give you the same result, but it's not good for the reusability of your code. Yeah, it's working for now. Don't worry about that. As long as it's working, there's a joke in programming that says that if it's working, don't touch it. Yeah, so for now it's working, don't touch it. But as you proceed, as you progress through your programming journey, you'll see why putting this for loop inside here is not good, because this will not always be a list. Yeah, what if you're just creating one person and inside you have your for loop inside the function? Then something might go wrong. Yeah, so you just need to define the function first and then call it inside a loop. Yeah, but for now, those who had their for loops inside the function, for now that serves the purpose. Yeah, and it's working. But next time, maybe with time you'll learn how to avoid such logical issues in your programs. Yeah, so I went through your code one by one, and I was giving you comments or hints on how you can where you are going wrong. So I found some of you are having the challenge. Some of you are using a while loop. Yeah, I think in the previous class, go visit the previous class and look at the fundamental differences between a for loop and a while loop. A while loop will be used when you're evaluating a certain condition, but a for loop will be used in cases of a sequence. Yeah, I remember there is one of you who have commented in their code that the user, this list here is a sequence. Yeah, and in a sequence, you use if you want to loop over every item in the sequence, use the for loop. Yeah, while loop will, you can do the same with the while loop, but that's the reason why you're having some issues, because it will require you to set up the flags and all that. Yeah. But a for loop is quite easier because these are sequence and you want to perform a task for every item in that sequence. Yeah. So for this case, we want to call this function for every name in our list. So use a for loop. What was the other issue that I encountered when I was looking through? I think that was the main issue in understanding how the loop is working. There's someone was with a loop that was incomplete. If you leave a loop like this without completing the loop statement, then it's going to give you an error. Yeah, you can see it's a syntax error. Yeah, so make sure your loop statements are complete. Any other big issue? No. So that was just those are the two main issues that I have identified in your code. Any question about this before we move on?
Hello.
Yes.
Just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Here you said we first do the print first before we call the for function.
Yeah.
Why is it if you put the for, what fault would that be? Okay, not in this particular case,
Yeah.
but in any other case.
So if you had your for loop here, yeah, like that. What if you didn't have this user here? So the main reason why we are using function is to enhance reusability. So what if we just wanted to print out, to use our function to just print out or to greet one user only? Yeah, that means this function will no longer work if we don't have these lists. Yeah, so this function is only tailored for this list. Yeah, so to avoid such a case, you just create a general function and you just call it whenever you need to use it. Yeah, so for now, this method works, but it will, as you progress in your programming journey, you'll realize the shortcoming of writing such a function. Yeah, it's just suited for this kind of scenario. But in most cases, you just want to create a function that is like, will work in most cases where you need to use it. Yeah. So if now you have you wanted just to have or to greet just one user, you don't have the users in a list, then your function will not work. Yeah.
So does that mean the for is supposed to come before the printing or what?
The for loop should be outside the function like that. Should remove it.
Okay, I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it.
You first declare the function and then you call that function inside the for loop. Okay. So make sure the function is working. So even if we just wanted to greet one user, we can just use our function again to greet, let's say, mom. Yeah. So we can run that. Greet user should be greet user, not greet. Yeah. And now you see we have greet mom. So our function is universal. It doesn't work only when we have a list. Yeah. So we can use it inside a loop. We can use it outside a loop. We can use it in any scenario.
Okay, I get it now.
Okay. Right. So let me turn on my lights just a minute. Okay, so next we're going to look at passing arguments to a function. We've looked at arguments and parameters, but there are different ways to pass now your arguments to the functions. Yeah, one of them is called using positional argument, like the one that we've been doing, the one that we've used in our example. This is a positional argument. This is where you pass your arguments in the function call in the same order they were declared when you're creating the function or when you're declaring the function. Yeah. So I'm going to clear these and we have a function definition here. Let's call it name. And our function name requires 2 arguments, or let's just change it to add. Let's call it add. And it takes 2 numbers, n1 and n2. So if you have more than one, remember to separate them with a comma, then the colon. Then we're going to print n1 plus n2. Yeah, because that is what our function is doing. It's taking 2 numbers and adding them and printing out the output of the sum of the 2 numbers. Yeah. And now we're going to call our function add using 2 and 3. And our function should print out 5. Okay. So we've entered these numbers in this order. So this is how they will be passed. So n1 will be 2 and n2 will be 3. Yeah, so they will be passed in the same order. If you reversed the order, then they'll be passed. Then if you had like yeah, the Zoom will close in 8 minutes, so we'll need to restart it again. There's a problem with the processing the payments for the Zoom account. That's why we are having these problems, but it will be sorted by next class. So don't worry. When it ends, we'll just restart it again. So I was saying, if you reversed this order and now you had 3, and 2, so 3 will go here to n1 and 2 will go to n2. So this order is always preserved when you're using positional argument. Another method of passing argument is using keyword arguments. But before we go to that, let's look at positional arguments deeper. So let's say we have this function here called describe pet, and it takes 2 arguments, the animal type and the pet name. So the animal type can be anything. It could be a dog, a cat, a lion. Yeah, if you like lions in your house, you can have a pet lion. And then the name of that pet. Okay. And then our function is going to print out, I have animal type, and my animal type's name is the pet name .title. And then we call our function using dog and Harry. Yeah. So the animal type will be dog and the pet name is Harry. And our function will print out, I have a dog and my dog's name is Harry. Okay, so this order is very important because if you reverse this order, you'll have a confused function. Yeah. So if you reverse this and Harry comes first and then dog, so you'll have the sentence will be I have a Harry and my Harry's name is dog. Yeah, that function is really messed up. Yeah, so the order is very important when you're using positional arguments. Yeah, you can see now I have a Harry and my Harry's name is dog. Yeah, that is not good at all. We don't want to have a Harry named dog. Yeah, so the order when you're using positional arguments or when you're passing arguments in functions using the positional arguments, make sure the order that you pass them during the function call is the same order in which they were defined, they were passed when the function was being declared. Okay. Any question about positional arguments? Okay, so then we're going to the alternative of using positional arguments is keyword arguments. And the keyword arguments, you pass, instead of just passing the values when you're doing your function call, you pass them in name value pairs. And the name is the parameter name that was used when you're declaring the function, and the value is now the value that you want to use for that parameter. Okay. So in our case here, we're using the same function, the described pet. We have the animal type and the pet, and our function prints out I have animal type and my animal type's name is pet name. Yeah. So when you're using keyword arguments, you see here we have this name animal type. So we are going to use it again during the function call, and then we are going to assign it to the value of that animal type now, where during the function call. And the pet, we do the same. And remember to separate them using a comma, the same way they are separated here using a comma during the function declaration. And for this now, the order does not matter, because now when you're calling this function, you've already said that you want your animal type to be rabbit and you want the pet name to be Simba. Yeah. So even if you have these come before, so you see the order in the function declaration is animal type, then pet, but now you can have the pet name and then animal type, and the function will work, will just work okay. Yeah, because now you have these names, these parameter names here, and you have assigned them to their respective values. Yeah, so if we run this, so I have a rabbit, my rabbit's name is Simba. Yeah, or you can even change this back to here, and essentially you should have the same results, nothing changes. Yeah, and that's how the keyword arguments work. So if you want to avoid confusion during your function calls, use keyword argument. They are a little bit they'll give you a little bit more work because you need to type them, but they make sure you don't have any mistakes when you're calling your functions. And remember that this name that you use here should be the name that was used in the parameter when you're declaring the function. Like if you come here and remove that, you can see here you have a type error, an expected keyword argument, animal type. So this needs to be the same as this, and this also needs to be the same as this. Okay. So I think our Zoom meeting is almost ending. So let's just give it a minute so that we can restart it again. before I move on to default arguments.